My videos are really intended to be more for informative purposes, and I don't know what your limitations are, but you do. If you're not sure about what you're doing, hire a professional, and if you like the ideas that I present in these videos, then show that to the professional that you hire to do the work for you. But if you're not sure, don't try these things by yourself. I hate to sound like Mythbusters and say don't try this at home, but I think knowledge ought to be free, but on the other hand, it's not my job to protect you from yourself. So, let's get on with the video. Well, this is the second part of the video on load diversion and using an electric water heater for that purpose. And I'm really excited to bring this particular segment to you today, because in this segment we find out how we can actually use standard components intended for a water heater and use that water heater itself to switch on the next load in line for your load diversion. So in this case we would take it from the water heater to an air compressor, or in my case the baseboard heaters in the house. It's starting to get cold these days, so those baseboard heaters are very much appreciated. And again, they're just part of the load dump. Once the water heater diverts the load from itself because the water's hot enough, it'll take that electrical current and switch it on out from itself and run the baseboard heaters, and they'll switch on and off the same way the water heater did. They're just the next thing in line. So in this video we're going to find out how we can actually use the water heater and its own components to switch out to the next device in line. This is a really cool thing, and I'm excited to show you how to do it. What we have here are 3 thermostats out of an electric water heater. The one on the right here with the rusty terminals, that is a upper thermostat, and these two on the left, the middle one and this one on the far left, are both lower thermostats. Now, a quick lesson on how water heaters work. The upper thermostat is basically a 3-way switch. It's going to bring electricity in, feed it out of this terminal to the heating element. This screw over here on the right, whenever the water temperature is up to the temperature that it needs to be, it'll turn this screw off and this one on. And that is what diverts the water or the electricity to the bottom element on the water heater. And then these two are just simply on-off switches. You can see this very simple one here has 2 screws. One that comes in for power, the other one goes to the heating element, and then from the heating element back up to power. So this is just a very simple switch. This one's the same thing, but it has this reset thermal breaker at the top. So you still have both wires come in. This one goes to the heating element, this one goes to the heating element, and it just simply turns it on and off. What I did was I took this lower thermostat out of my water heater and I replaced it with an upper thermostat. So that way, when this switches off to turn off the lower element, this one turns on. Now I know that the water in the water heater is fully hot and ready to be used. The power is diverted out this screw. That could go to a 240 volt air compressor. It could go to 120 volts, anything. But I use mine to divert to 240 volt electric baseboard heaters in my house. So once I have water, hot water is the highest priority, and then in the wintertime the remaining electricity is diverted over to electric baseboard heaters. But a lot of people think that both heating elements come on at the same time in a water heater. That's not true. It's made up of two elements. The top one heats first, then the bottom one, and the reason for that is recovery. There's heating the top of the water heats it faster so that you can use it sooner, and then you heat up the bottom. We still go ahead and do that with this setup, but it just takes longer. And I know a lot of people think that both elements turn on at the same time. They don't do that. If you turned on both elements at the same time, it'd cost you a fortune to run the wire to the water heater. And the most you'll see is maybe a number 12 wire. I've got number 10 run to my water heater, but most times it's 12. That's good for 20 amps. And 20 times 240 is 4,800 watts. And so that would run even those big elements that I had in my water heater. Okay, this is to demonstrate that the water heater will cycle on and off with the voltage. Right now the amperage is 39 amps. That means that the water heater is on. That's the amps that the water heater consumes when it's on, and that's DC amps, not AC amps. That's what the inverter is using. So if I come over to my stove and I turn my stove on high, now you can see that I am pulling 89 amps, 90 amps. Well, as that voltage goes down, you'll notice the water heater will drop out. Boom. Now the stove is pulling 56 amps, and the stove is on by itself, and the voltage is starting to creep up. As that voltage creeps up, the voltage will reach that threshold and it'll turn the water heater back on, even with the stove on. But that way it keeps the battery voltage from getting too low by both things being on. I'll come over and turn this back off, and you can see that's an electric stove. We're back down to 5 amps and the voltage is going up real quickly now. And then you'll see the amperage go from 5 amps back up to almost 40 amps that the water heater would be using to heat the water. So once this 30 seconds is up, you'll see it go back up. And there we go, 36 amps. The voltage is still at 56 volts, and everything's working exactly the way that it should. Okay, so today we've talked about how you can use electricity to heat water with, and it's preferential over natural gas, propane, or a solar water heater. And to kind of prove the point out, on this particular day that I've got this video segment I want to show you, you can clearly see that it's extremely overcast. It's so overcast, in fact, that there aren't even any shadows being cast on the ground anywhere. And then when we go into the electrical shed where I've got my batteries and charge controller and inverter, you can see here that we're still making well over 1 kilowatt. 1,000 watts is what we're generating with complete overcast, cloudy. And on a day like this, we're not going to make any hot water whether we're using a solar water heater or with the electrical system. But with having everything piled in with the electrical system through photovoltaics, I'm making over twice the amount of electricity that I would be making if I weren't using the electricity to heat the water. So as you can see, this is clearly an advantage over using straight sunlight to just generate hot water. We use it instead to generate the electricity. Then we use the electricity and apply that to heating water, and then we can move on and apply it to other areas. That's it for this week's video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you next week, or next month, or whenever I get to it. I always answer questions whether posted publicly or privately. See you then.